My ex-wife made our daughter sleep in the guest room so her affair partner's son could have her room, and now she has the audacity to cry after our daughter chose me in the custody battle. I, 42M, never thought I'd be writing this, but I need to get this off my chest. 6 months ago, my world turned upside down when I discovered my wife of 15 years was having an affair with a coworker. The discovery came on what should have been one of the happiest days of our lives. I had just been promoted to senior technical director, a position we'd both dreamed about since I started at the company fresh out of college. I'd rushed home early to surprise Sarah with the news, thinking we could finally plan that European vacation she'd been hinting at for years. What made it worse wasn't just the betrayal, it was how she treated our daughter Amy, 14F, in the process. I work in tech management at one of the leading software companies in our state, and my job requires occasional travel, usually just quick trips to our satellite offices or client sites. My ex-wife Sarah, 39F, is the marketing director at one of the largest firms in our city, having worked her way up from junior copywriter over the past decade. We had what I thought was a good life, a beautiful 4-bedroom house in one of the best school districts in the suburbs, annual family vacations, including a memorable trip to Disney where Amy got to be a princess for a day, and the kind of comfortable lifestyle that allowed us to save for both retirement and Amy's college fund. We weren't wealthy by any means, but we were comfortable enough that Sarah could take 3 months of unpaid leave when Amy was born, something she'd always said meant the world to her. Amy was our only child, and I always thought we both treasured her equally. Looking back, there were signs I chose to ignore because I trusted her completely. Sarah started working late more often, claiming there were big pitches and client presentations that needed her attention. The team dinners became more frequent, always with the same core group that supposedly was working on a major rebranding project. She became increasingly protective of her phone, angling it away when I walked past and taking it with her even just to go to the laundry room. She even changed her password for the first time in our marriage, claiming it was a new company security policy. I later found out no such policy existed. But what really set off alarm bells was when Amy called me during a business trip to Seattle. I was in the middle of a critical client meeting when my phone kept buzzing. 3 missed calls from Amy in 5 minutes. She never calls more than once unless it's an emergency. I excused myself, my heart pounding as I stepped into the hallway. When I called back, she was crying so hard I could barely understand her. Through broken sobs, she told me her mom had moved all her things into the guest room while she was at school. She came home to find her childhood bedroom stripped bare, her posters taken down, her carefully arranged bookshelves emptied. The collection of seashells we'd gathered during our beach trips over the years, the photo collage of her and her best friends that had taken an entire weekend to create, the glow-in-the-dark stars on her ceiling that we'd mapped to match real constellations, all gone, packed away in boxes in the garage. At first, Sarah claimed it was temporary, saying Amy's room needed repairs. But when I got home early from my trip, I found out the truth. Sarah had moved her affair partner Steve's son Jake, 16M, into our daughter's room because he was having trouble at home and needed a place to stay. She'd given away our daughter's space without even discussing it with me. I confronted Sarah, and everything came tumbling out. She'd been having an affair with her coworker Steve for 8 months. He was going through a messy divorce, and Sarah had offered to help by letting his son stay with us. But instead of using one of our actual guest rooms, she displaced our own daughter. The worst part? She tried to justify it by saying Amy's room was bigger and more suitable for a teenage boy. Our daughter had spent years decorating that room, had all her memories there, and Sarah just gave it away like it meant nothing. I immediately moved into the guest room myself and contacted a lawyer. What followed was one of the messiest periods of my life. Sarah tried to paint me as the bad guy, claiming I was never there for the family because of work travel, which was maybe 1 to 2 times per month. She even tried to claim I was having my own affair, which was completely false. But Amy, my brave, smart daughter, she had been silently documenting everything in a detailed diary, showing a maturity far beyond her 14 years. In neat, careful handwriting, she recorded dates, times, and incidents, how her mom would leave her alone on school nights to go meet Steve, sometimes not returning until after midnight. How she was repeatedly told to be nice to Steve's son and make him feel welcome even after he made comments about her body that made her uncomfortable. How Sarah would gaslight her when she complained about losing her room, saying things like "You're being selfish, don't you care about helping others?" And a truly kind person would want to share their space. The diary entries were heartbreaking to read. Dad's away on business and mom left again at 8 p.m. Said she had a work emergency but I saw her put on her date night perfume. There's no food in the house except leftover pizza from Monday. Jake, Steve's son, keeps playing his music really loud in my room and when I asked him to turn it down, he said my dad's dating your mom so I can do what I want. When I told mom, she said I was being difficult and needed to try harder to blend our families. Another entry read, found mom crying in the kitchen at 2 a.m. When I asked what was wrong, she said I couldn't understand because I've never been in love like she is with Steve. Said sometimes we have to hurt the people we love to be true to ourselves. I wanted to ask if that means she doesn't love me anymore, but I was afraid of the answer. When my lawyer read the diary, he said it was some of the most compelling evidence he'd seen in 15 years of handling custody cases. This isn't just a record of events, he explained, it's a documentation of systematic emotional abandonment and manipulation of a minor. The fact that your daughter had the presence of mind to write everything down, including direct quotes and timestamps. It's going to be very hard for your wife to claim these are fabrications. During the divorce proceedings, Sarah played every dirty trick she could think of, turning what could have been an amicable separation into an all-out war. She contacted every mutual friend we had, spinning elaborate tales about how I was controlling and emotionally manipulative. She told people I monitored her phone and emails. I hadn't. Ironically, she was the one who'd been secretly checking my location through our shared family plan. She claimed I'd isolated her from her friends. In reality, I'd encouraged her to maintain her friendships, even watching Amy solo on many weekends so she could have girls' nights out, nights I now suspect were spent with Steve. The accusations got increasingly outlandish. She told our marriage counselor I was emotionally abusive because I weaponized my work travel, deliberately taking trips when she needed me home, trips that were scheduled months in advance and crucial to our family's financial stability. She even tried to paint my close relationship with Amy as somehow inappropriate, suggesting to her lawyer that I was emotionally dependent on our daughter. The accusation made me physically ill. The financial attacks were just as aggressive. One morning, I got a call from our bank's fraud department. Sarah had tried to transfer nearly our entire joint savings account to a new private account. Thank God my lawyer had advised me to protect our assets by moving half into a separate account as soon as I filed for divorce. She'd also maxed out our joint credit cards on shopping sprees, claiming she needed to establish her new home for Amy, though most purchases were designer clothes and jewelry for herself. Update 1. The custody hearing was yesterday, and Amy asked to speak to the judge privately. She's 14, so the judge agreed to hear her preferences. What came out shocked everyone except me. Amy detailed how her mother had systematically prioritized her affair partner's family over her own daughter. She told the judge about being forced to give up her room, about Sarah telling her she was selfish for not wanting to share her space with Steve's son, and about how her mother would leave her alone at night to go to Steve's house. The judge was visibly disturbed by Amy's testimony. When the judge announced his decision, Sarah broke down crying. I was awarded primary custody, with Sarah getting every other weekend, standard visitation. But here's the kicker, Amy doesn't even want to go for the weekends. She said she can't trust her mother anymore. The most heartbreaking part? Sarah still doesn't get it. She came to me after the hearing, crying about how unfair it all was, how she made one mistake and was losing everything. She couldn't see that it wasn't just the affair, it was how she'd treated our daughter through it all. Update 2. It's been a month since the custody hearing, and things have gotten both better and worse. Better because Amy is thriving now that she's back in her own room and has stability. I've taken a new position at work that requires less travel, and we're in family therapy to help process everything. Worse because Sarah has started a social media campaign painting herself as the victim. She's posting about how the courts favor fathers, which is statistically untrue, and how I turned her daughter against her. Our mutual friends have been sending me screenshots of her posts, and it's honestly disgusting. The reality? I never said a bad word about Sarah to Amy. I didn't have to. Sarah's actions spoke for themselves. When Amy asked me why her mom would do this, I always redirected her to our family therapist. I wanted her to process this in a healthy way, not build up resentment. Steve's son moved out last week. Apparently, his mom got custody, and he's living with her now. Sarah tried to use this as a reason why Amy should come back to her room at Sarah's new apartment, but Amy refused. She said that room stopped feeling like hers the day her mom gave it away without asking. Update 3. Sarah showed up at our house unannounced today, her eyes red and mascara streaked down her face. I was in the backyard, helping Amy with her science project. We were building a model of the solar system, something we'd been planning for weeks as a way to spend quality time together. The doorbell rang just as we were hanging Neptune. When I opened the door, Sarah nearly collapsed into my arms, sobbing about how she'd broken up with Steve. Apparently, he'd been seeing someone else at their office, a younger marketing coordinator who'd just joined the team. The irony wasn't lost on me. She kept saying she'd made a huge mistake, that she'd lost herself in the excitement of a new relationship, that she wanted her family back. I've been going to therapy, she said, wiping her eyes with the sleeve of what I recognized as a new designer sweater, probably bought with the money she'd taken from our joint account. I realize now what I threw away. We could start over, couldn't we? For Amy's sake? I looked at her standing there, this woman I'd loved for 15 years, and felt nothing. No anger anymore, no hurt, just a profound emptiness where our connection used to be. I told her no, not just because of the affair, but because of how she'd treated our daughter. The affair could potentially be forgiven with time and therapy, but the systematic way she'd pushed Amy aside, made her feel unwelcome in her own home, and prioritized her new relationship over her daughter's well-being? That was unforgivable. She broke down completely then, sliding down to sit on our front porch steps. Between sobs, she admitted that she'd gotten caught up in trying to create a new family with Steve. She'd convinced herself that giving Jake Amy's room was a way to prove her commitment to their relationship, to show Steve she was serious about blending their families. I was just trying to help a child in need, she insisted, still unable to see how she'd hurt her own child in the process. That's when Amy came down from hanging the last planet in our solar system model. She stood in the doorway, still holding the string we'd been using to suspend the planets, and just stared at her mother. The silence between them was deafening. Sarah reached out, started to stand up, but Amy took a step back. "Sweetheart," Sarah began, her voice trembling, "I miss you so much. I know I made mistakes, but..." Amy cut her off with a calm that broke my heart. "You didn't make mistakes, Mom. You made choices. Every time you left me alone to go see Steve, that was a choice. When you gave away my room without asking me, that was a choice. When you told me I was being selfish for not wanting Jake to go through my things, that was a choice. She paused, twisting the string between her fingers. And now I'm making my choice. She turned and walked back upstairs, the sound of her bedroom door closing echoing through the house. Sarah started to follow her, but I stepped in front of her. You need to respect her boundaries, I said firmly. It's something you should have done months ago. The most telling moment came next. Sarah turned to me, her face a mix of anger and confusion. Why won't she forgive me? She demanded. I've forgiven her for choosing sides in the custody battle. I've forgiven her for telling the judge those private things. I'm her mother, she's supposed to love me no matter what. And there it was, the fundamental problem. Sarah still saw herself as the victim. She talked about forgiving Amy, as if our daughter was the one who had betrayed trust, broken promises, and shattered their relationship. She couldn't understand that Amy hadn't chosen sides, she'd chosen safety, stability, and a parent who put her first. She'd chosen self-respect over enabling her mother's delusions. Update 4, 6 months have passed since my last update, and I felt it was time to share how things have evolved. Amy is doing amazingly well, she's joined the debate team, her grades are up, and our therapist says she's processing everything in a healthy way. Sarah has finally stopped her social media campaign, partly because it backfired when Amy's cousins, Sarah's nieces, commented with the truth on several posts. She started therapy herself, which I hope will help her understand the damage she's caused. Amy has agreed to start having lunch with her mom once a month, but only in public places and only if their therapist is working with them on rebuilding trust. It's a small step, but an important one. As for me, I've started dating again, very casually, and with Amy's full knowledge and approval. The woman I'm seeing is a divorced mom herself who understands the importance of putting kids first. Amy likes her, but we're taking things extremely slowly. The biggest lesson I've learned from all this? Sometimes the worst moments in life show us who people really are. Sarah showed us who she was when she prioritized her affair partner's son over our daughter. Amy showed us who she was by standing up for herself with grace and maturity. And I hope I showed Amy that she'll always have at least one parent who puts her first, no matter what. To the parents out there going through something similar, remember that your kids are watching how you handle betrayal and hurt. They're learning from your example. Choose to be the parent they can trust, even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard. Sarah still sometimes asks why Amy won't just get over it and move forward. She doesn't understand that trust, once broken, doesn't repair itself just because you want it to. It takes time, effort, and most importantly, genuine understanding of the harm you've caused. Until Sarah gets that, Amy's monthly lunches are all she gets, and honestly, that's more than she deserves. Final update, reading through these updates, I realize how far we've come. Amy is turning 15 next week, and for the first time since everything happened, she's having a real birthday party. After much discussion in therapy, she decided to invite Sarah, her own choice, not because anyone pressured her. Her therapist says this kind of autonomous decision-making is crucial for her healing process. The party planning has been therapeutic for both of us. Amy wanted a space theme, inspired by the solar system project we completed together. We've spent weekends painting constellations on dark blue tablecloths, crafting planet-shaped piñatas, and designing invitations that look like NASA mission patches. Every time she gets excited about a new decoration or game idea, I see more of that spark returning to her eyes, the one that dimmed during those dark months of Sarah's affair. The guest room that Amy briefly stayed in has undergone its own transformation. We've turned it into what her therapist calls a safe space, a study and art room designed entirely to Amy's specifications. The walls are now a soothing sage green, her choice, with one wall dedicated to a massive corkboard where she pins her artwork, photos, and achievements. There's a cozy reading nook with fairy lights and plenty of pillows, and an art station with professional-grade supplies for her growing interest in painting. The irony isn't lost on me. The room that once represented her displacement is now a symbol of her healing, a physical manifestation of putting her needs first. What surprises people most is how well Amy is doing academically. Many assume that trauma like this would cause grades to slip, but if anything, she's more focused than ever. Her English teacher recently called to tell me that Amy's essay about resilience and growth through adversity was one of the most powerful pieces she'd read in 20 years of teaching. Amy wrote about how losing her room taught her the difference between a house and a home, that a home isn't about the physical space, but about feeling safe, valued, and loved. Sarah still struggles to understand why weekly dinners or shopping trips aren't enough to rebuild their relationship. At Amy's last therapy session, which Sarah attended, the therapist explained that trust is like a mirror, once broken, even if you glue it back together, the cracks remain visible. You can't just pretend the break never happened, you have to acknowledge it and learn to work with the new reality. Sarah nodded along, but later that week sent Amy texts about leaving the past in the past and starting fresh. To the parents out there going through something similar, remember that your kids are watching how you handle betrayal and hurt. They're learning from your example about self-respect, boundaries, and what love should look like. Choose to be the parent they can trust, even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard. Your children will remember not just what happened, but how you helped them through it. Sarah still sometimes asks why Amy won't just get over it and move forward. She doesn't understand that trust, once broken, doesn't repair itself just because you want it to. It takes time, effort, and most importantly, genuine understanding of the harm you've caused. Until Sarah gets that, Amy's monthly lunches are all she gets, and honestly, that's more than she deserves. The other day, I overheard Amy talking to her best friend on the phone. You know what's weird? She said. I'm actually kind of grateful for what happened. Not because it was good, it wasn't. But it showed me who really cares about me. And it taught me that I'm stronger than I thought. Hearing those words, I had to step away to wipe my eyes. My daughter is not just surviving, she's growing, learning, and becoming an incredibly resilient young woman. That's the real story here, not the betrayal, not the drama, but the transformation. Amy and I are going to be okay. We're more than okay, we're stronger. And maybe someday, Sarah will understand that she didn't just betray a marriage, she betrayed a daughter's trust. Until then, we'll keep moving forward, building our new normal, one day at a time.